This is TWiT.
This episode of Tech Break is brought to you by ACI Learning. While organizations continue to seek out cybersecurity talent, the cyber skills gap grows bigger every day. The average salary for cybersecurity specialists in the United States is $116,000. Through IT Pro's binge-worthy programs, ACI Learning can help elevate anyone choosing to start their IT career. Visit go.acilearning.com/twit to get started today.
I just thought this was interesting. So I got back a week ago from a vacation. I was gone for 2.5 weeks. And so that whole time I was like completely oblivious to anything technology news. Like I made it a true like vacation from tech news, and it was wonderful. But as you all know, the flip side of this is when you get back to work, you got a lot of catch up to do. So I wasn't aware that apparently it's at least according to Mark Gurman at Bloomberg, it's pretty much a lock that we're actually going to finally hear about Apple's virtual reality, or whatever they're calling it, the reality headset at WWDC this year. So I don't know. I feel like we've heard this many times before and it keeps not happening, but Gurman seems pretty solid on the fact that this is going to be the WWDC where you see it, period. And he's got a great track record.
The timing could not be worse.
I totally agree. That's why I wanted to talk about it.
If Apple does release this headset, and I'm starting to doubt if they will actually release it. It's also not beyond them to just say, you know what, let's pull this back.
Scrap it.
And not do it. Wait. Because Disney just canceled their whole division that's making content for Metaverse. They don't
Meta, huge layoffs in Metaverse.
Even Mark Zuckerberg is quitting the Metaverse. And if Mark Zuckerberg is quitting the Metaverse, then it probably is over.
I mean, he went all in. He did about the biggest thing you could do with the Metaverse. He changed his name to the Metaverse.
I know. I mean, he might as well have burned $10 billion.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So Zuckerberg is pretty much done with that whole world. I didn't know this.
He's shifting to AI. Like, they got burned so badly on it and it tanked their stock price. And I think he's under a lot of pressure, from the company. I mean, he's under as much pressure as he can be under. He has this controlling.
Everyone I talk to at Facebook is like, it's layoff watch. Like, nobody's getting work done. They're all just sitting around waiting to get laid off.
Oh my goodness. That's horrible.
Wow.
That's no fun at all.
So I just can't, I just don't know that I see now. Apple could be really take a position where they're going to say, we're going to zig when everybody else zags. They love to do that, as everybody knows. But, this was already sort of it. They had been ratcheting back. They've had leaks. They've leaked stuff to the press. I think these are pretty clearly leaks in some sense of that they're only going to have 500,000 units, that it's going to charge $3,000. It's really going to be more of a developer device to get people excited about the metaverse.
So it's Google Glass all over again.
It does, right? It starts to look like Google Glass. And I think Apple, I would be more enthusiastic about, or maybe optimistic about the fact that they're going to actually release something if they had gone in the direction of AR, where this is a device that needs an iPhone and gives you a little bit of a heads-up display that's powered by the iPhone wirelessly or something, and is a third accessory, right? Because they've had huge success with AirPods as an accessory. They've had huge success with the Apple Watch. Those are both essentially iPhone accessories. And another iPhone accessory, that would seem to be a slam dunk. But I just think the technology is not ready yet for that. And I think that's what they wanted to do. And they'd spent a lot of money on it. And it seems like then they went into the reality thing because it looked like there was a there. And all of a sudden it looks like, everybody has left the party. And if other than HTC and a few like diehards, but there's not good content. Even Apple, most of their developer content that they've been focusing on the past like 3 to 5 years has all been AR, not VR. They've been developing really great developer kits and working closely with developers. They have a nice ecosystem that's growing in AR. VR is like a complete unknown. So they might release something. Clearly, they have something ready to be released and have been demoing it to some people, some insiders. But it just seems like this is a really a train wreck waiting to happen if they do it. And this is not something, they are such a conservative company. They are very, very conservative about releasing new things. We see that everything is so incremental that Apple does now, that this would be, I would be shocked, almost surprised. And I know that's not the popular opinion or the consensus. But if they actually release this at WWDC, I don't think it's going to happen.
Release or show?
Show. Maybe
okay.
They will show it. That's true. That's a good asterisk. They might show it and say released at the end of the year. And then that still gives them the out to at the end of the year say, you know what, this still needs some time.
Yeah.
And they might, charging pad this device and just, put it back under the shelf and nobody ever hears from it again in that case.
It ends up, a developer version of the device ends up on eBay in 10 years for some astronomical amount. Yeah, could happen.
You can very, very simple, like what Jason just described, cost benefit. Like what is there to gain? Like what market share is there for them to take? How many users are there for that Apple to acquire versus what are the risks? And the risks are tremendous. So if they they could show it like Jason said and say, hey, it's a developer preview, there's only going to be a certain amount and we'll iterate on this product over time. But why? Why not just wait? Why not just wait and release, just like Jason said, something that's AR? It's not called VR kit. It is called AR kit. Release something that's AR in a few years. And look, your Apple Watch and your AirPods already are fantastic peripherals for AR. Right. The AirPods do great listening and peripheral listening. One of the problems that you have with everybody has with VR is that you shut out the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have an infant toddler. I can't shut out the rest of my world to like get on a VR call when I could just Zoom. But AR, especially if I have AirPods that listen and have haptics and I have a watch that does haptics and can notify me of events, then suddenly I'm in an environment that's a lot more conducive to having a pair of glasses on my face in a couple years.
Is it safe to say the only real market for VR with the headsets or what have you is going to be on the industrial side of things more so than in the consumer entertainment side of
and not even that. Microsoft canned HoloLens over a year ago. So, and they're really, I covered that. I had a HoloLens and there was just every use case was just stretching it. Like there were really cool B2B things that could happen potentially and looked really neat, but just weren't practical and weren't actually happening.
Yeah, same could be said for Google Glass and the Enterprise Edition, because Google, that was their pivot, was, okay, well, this isn't really for consumers anymore, but, the Enterprise is going to come in really handy. And yes, there were, occasional stories where they would highlight how it is being used in the enterprise, but I highly suspect that was not the norm. That was definitely, the exception to the rule. And of course,
the idea still is running so far ahead of the reality on this. It's a terrible pun, but it's just not there yet, right? The ideas are much further advanced than the capabilities. At CES, I tried the new HTC Vive headset, which really has the latest capabilities. This is all they do, primarily. This is the main thing that they do. They're so focused on it. They've got the latest technology in this device. I tried it. I thought at the time there were some really interesting pieces of it. It's as far as it could get, but within 48 hours, I'd completely forgot about it, was moved on to anything else and really haven't hardly thought about it since, right? There's just not enough in it for it to be that interesting right now. And I just have to believe that Apple sees that there's not an echo chamber there, and they know that this is not good, and there's not enough of a there, and we aren't going to release it. I trust Mark Gurman's sources. I think that, Mark Gurman has been, spot on many times about these kinds of things, but we're still 2 months away from, or almost a month and a half away, a little over a month and a half away from WWDC. There's still plenty of time for Apple to pull the plug and say it's just not enough.
For sure, and would not be surprised in any way if that happened. Yeah, he wrote that Apple is looking at this device as the future beyond iPhone and iPad. We've heard that before, but which is it's really hard for me to envision that.
No.
Both of those things are way more palatable for the everyday person. And if you're looking for a device category that begins with those as the example, we want the next one of these. It's got to be as consumer palatable as those things. And the reality is those things, those iPhone, a smartphone fits very easily into your pocket. It really does not take much other than cost. Expense, is the primary thing to use one of those. And the success of the smartphone industry has bared that to be true, obviously, because everybody has these things now. I just don't see it when it comes to anything that you're putting on your head. And maybe I'm short-sighted. Mark Zuckerberg sure thought we were short-sighted, and that's why he named the company Meta. And look where we're at right now. Like, it really does seem like he's wearing egg on his face, so
his lawyers are working hard to roll that back.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Now, right.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. But anyways, yeah. And I mean, according to his report also, the initial plan, according to Mark Gurman, was that the headset was going to be introduced in March and sold publicly by September. Well, that obviously did not happen. Now it's to be introduced at WWDC, sold by the end of the year. Even that, I just feel like is just, God, if Apple's actually releasing this thing, they better know something we don't as far as all this stuff is concerned, because right now it really looks like a very misguided direction, in my opinion. And this is coming from somebody. I have the Meta Quest. I have the Meta Quest 2, and I've spent a lot of time in them. But I've also spent a lot of time in the last 6, 8, 10 months, I'd say, not in them. It's like I had this big moment, I can narrow down to like a solid year, I'd say, year and a half, where I was all about it. And then at some point, it just became too much for me. Like when I go into that world, I didn't used to, but now I don't necessarily feel 100%. Like, it's not like I need to throw up or something, but I don't feel good. I don't feel perfect like I did before I put the headset on. And that's enough of a detraction to be like, I don't have the energy for it tonight. And so it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So what has Apple got that's different than that? I don't know. I don't know what they could have.
We did a story at CBS News, and we shot the entire story in Horizon Worlds. Like everything, we shot it just like you would a regular stand-up or a package, but everything was in Horizon Worlds in VR.
Nice.
And we even recreated the CBS News broadcast center, and there were functioning camera angles and all that. And like Jason Howell, it came down to exactly that point. Like, we would get on meetings and go, "Oh, let's just do a Zoom."
Yeah.
Like, oh man, do I have to get that thing? I wear glasses. Like, do I gotta fit this to my face and then scratch my glasses and then go?
And to what benefit? I mean, there is this idea of like extra presence, and I would agree that when I'm standing in a room with someone talking to them, that feels better than sitting in front of a screen talking to them on a screen. But I don't know that the standing in a room talking to someone experience is the same as standing in a virtual room talking to that same person in a virtual way, but realistic kind of, you know what I mean? They don't translate. I don't get the same benefit out of one that I do out of the other. So then why am I? I don't know. I don't even know.
We've seen all these Star Trek and Star Wars holograms, and we're like, we're almost there with this. Like, we're not. We're not even close. And the path there is rough. And so people are not going to be ready to spend money on it when they have that as their vision of what it is and could be. When you get to the reality of what it is today, it just doesn't feel like it's really worth the time or effort.
Yeah. What is the there?
We were in a very similar spot with the Apple Car, maybe a half dozen years ago.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Right? It was just the next quarter. They were going to announce it on sale by the end of the year. Right. Yeah. There seem to be parallels.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So
all of the headsets they've made already are right now, they're getting packed into the trunk of the Apple Car, to be shipped to an unknown location.
Look, it's hard times for tech companies right now. You got to do what you got to do to save on costs. So I understand.